KLR650 or DR650? Which one? Hello, D-Rock here. Welcome to the channel. I hope you all are well. Which one indeed? The Kawasaki KLR650 or the Suzuki DR650? It's a tough choice. Both bikes are excellent. I own both. So I wanted to do a short video on my experience owning both the KLR650 and the DR650. I'm not going to get into one bike is better than the other. I've enjoyed both bikes immensely. However, if you're in the market for one of these bikes, I'm just going to go over some simple specs of the bikes and my general experience with both these bikes over the last year and a half or so. So let's get into it. Okay, this is my 2023 Suzuki DR650. I'm going to do just a quick talk about the general specs of this bike in general. I'm not getting anything detailed here. There's other channels that do it much better than I do. So let's just go ahead and start. The engine is a 644cc single cylinder 4-stroke. It is 5-speed carbureted, oil and air cooled. Tires, front and rear. Front's 21, rear 17. Seat height, this isn't the stock seat by the way. Stock seat height, 34 inches. Stock gas tank, 3.4 gallons, and I think some people may have got up to 150 miles out of a stock tank. My experience, right when I hit the 100-mile mark, I started getting that little voice in the back of my head that, okay, you need to pay attention here. And then I maybe get to 120, and I always top the gas off at 120. I didn't take it any farther than that. A lot of times I'd be out in the desert, blah, blah, blah. So I have heard people get up to 150 off a stock gas tank miles, but I never got that far. Weight of the stock DR650, 365 pounds, more or less. Horsepower, 36 horsepower. Some say 43 horsepower. I'm sure there's people out there that know the numbers better than I do, but that's what I pull off specs. And the price, this is a 2023 model. As far as I know, price is still MSRP at $6,999, right at $7,000. You'll get that out the door probably over $8,000, maybe a little more, depending on what your dealer charges you. And there aren't different models of the DR650. I think it's just the Suzuki DR650 SE, as far as I know. And it's pretty much the same bike going back all the way to 1996. The only difference I think happened was an electric start was added at some point. And other than that, it is roughly the same bike. Yeah, pretty cool. Gotta love simple. This is my 2022 Kawasaki KLR650. This is the Gen 3, the newest generation of the KLR650. So let's go ahead and get right into it. It is a 652cc single cylinder 4-stroke, also 5-speed. However, the Gen 3 now has EFI or fuel injection, no more carburetor. And this bike is liquid cooled. And while we're talking about the engine, we'll just say number 40 horsepower. Same as the DR650, has a 21 front and a 17 rear. Seat height, stock seat, this is the stock seat, excuse me, 34.3 inches. So both bikes in their stock form are pretty tall. However, the KLR just came out, I think it was last year, with the short model. And I think the seat height's 32, if I'm not mistaken, 32 inches. I could be wrong on that, but they do offer a short model in the KLR650 now, which is pretty cool. Gas tank, 6 gallons. That's right. It has a massive gas tank. And I think the max range, you can get 300 miles out of that. In my experience, I've gotten I've done it, and I've gotten close just right at almost 300 miles. So it's pretty true. You know, you got to choose your variables, headwinds. Are you doing 70? Are you doing 55? I mean, all the variables included. But overall, let's just say 300-mile max on a full tank of gas. That's pretty cool. Now, here's a striking difference. Weight. This is a base model. I'm seeing, when I check specs, 456 pounds. That's right. That's a big bike. It's a heavy bike. I know they get heavier, but it's a heavy bike. So price, now there's different models of the Gen 3 KLR650, the base model, then I think there's a traveler model, and then there's a traveler model, and then there's an adventure model. I don't know if they still make the traveler model at 2024. I know they did in 22 and maybe 23. Anyway, so there's a couple models to choose from. Base model starts at MSRP 6,899 and going up to the adventure model, which I believe is 8,199. So you've got a little difference there. Of course, you know, out the door, you might as well tack on another 1,000 to 1,500 depending on where you are. So there you have it. So let me just say my experience with both of these bikes as far as my riding, style of riding, I haven't tried to jump ditches or jump trees, you know, go over trees. Nothing crazy. I've taken both bikes on, I would say at the max, some light technical terrain. Mostly forest roads, dirt roads, deep into the desert. Higher elevations. Both bikes I've taken up to 9,000, 10,000 feet. Both bikes performed just fine at those elevations, even the DR650 with its carburetor. And then of course into the low desert. Oil air-cooled on the Suzuki, liquid-cooled on the KLR650. I've ridden both of these bikes in triple-digit heat thus far. I've had no issues with overheating or anything of that nature. Both bikes have performed just well in triple-digit heat. Both bikes have performed just well in below freezing temperatures, which I've ridden both these bikes in as well. Now, speaking of cold temperatures, I should point out there's a couple things with the KLR650 that gets a lot of commotion. That's the thermobob and the doohickey, both of which I have not done on my bike. That's up to the individual. I just don't know if it merits. I have not had any problems, so I haven't done anything. I think if I were to do any of those, it may be the thermobob, but that's just if you're in really cold temperatures. I don't really ride in cold temperatures. I live in the desert, so the coldest I get into is maybe, you know, just below freezing. Maybe that's where it's at. I don't know. But like I said, I haven't had any problems riding in freezing or below freezing weather with this KLR650. So I think it's pretty much up to the individual. One other thing I should point out about the 2022 model, and I think it's the only year that these models were affected with the KLR650, is it had a faulty fuel pump, which Kawasaki replaced on their dime. There was a recall. I don't think 23 models or 24 models are affected, as far as I know. I could be wrong. But other than that, I've had no issues with either bike. Riding on highways, riding on the interstate, riding on dirt roads, deep into the backcountry, moto camping, no issues. Let's just talk about maybe some cons. I'm sure you can find plenty of cons with either bike if you look hard enough. There's plenty of it out there you can find, and there's always going to be a con here and there. So with the DR650, some people say the carburetor is a big con. It really hasn't affected me. For the most part, I just run ethanol-free gas in this bike. Not all the time, but most of the time, because I live in an area where I can readily find ethanol-free gas. I know that's different in some states. But I run the bike weekly, and like I said, if I'm on a road trip somewhere on the DR650, I will use other gas, and I haven't had an issue with a clogged carburetor or gummed up carburetor. So that hasn't been a con for me yet. Some would say the lack of technology on the DR650 is a con. And I'm not gonna lie, it is a very simple bike. It has no bells and whistles. And for me, that's okay. I'm okay. Like here, take a look. You wanna look at the display, the information center, there you have it. You get a speedo and a neutral and turn signal and headlight indicator. And that's it. Electric start. I mean, what more do you need? It could be argued that you could need a lot more. Another con would be the 5-speed. It doesn't really bother me. This bike goes plenty fast enough on the highway for me. You can roll down the interstate 80 miles an hour depending on who you are and the variables. You know, are you 300 pounds? Do you have it loaded with gear? Or, you know, in a headwind, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I haven't had any issues, at least going 75 miles an hour. Bike just does just fine with the 5-speed, and I find it very comfortable. To be honest with you, I look for the 6th gear more on the KLR than I do on the DR650, but neither bike has a sixth gear. So, and one other, the most serious con for me with the DR650 in the stock form is the seat. The seat is awful, awful, awful. That's like if you get a stock DR650, the first thing you're going to do is get rid of that seat. So I went with the Pro Cycle standard seat. That was, I believe, $300. So that's one thing you need to be aware of with the DR650 is that stock seat is one of the first things. I'm talking like after just 20, 30 miles, you're in pain. Well, at least I was. I don't know. So those are a few of the cons that some people associate with the DR650. Like I said, I try to focus on more of the pros and the cons of the bikes, but as far as reliability, it's a pretty bulletproof bike. So cons of the KLR650, once again, we could do say the same thing. This is 5-speed. I do search for that 6th gear more so on the KLR650. However, this bike does get me down the interstate at 75 miles per hour. Not really an issue. If you're just using this bike to cruise highways, you know, 55, 65 miles an hour, it shouldn't be a problem for you at all in dirt roads and such. The bike is extremely comfortable. Stock seat, it's been called grandma's couch. It's just a big, comfortable bike. I already mentioned the doohickey and the thermal bob. That can be a con for some people. Some people maybe focus too much on that. Like I said, I haven't had any issues. I haven't done either of those things on the bike, and I've had no problems. I think the biggest con for me with the KLR650 is its weight. At 456 pounds stock, I think that's curb weight. Is curb weight? God, there's wet weight, curb weight, dry, you know. Is that with the gas in it? That's a pretty good con for me, is the weight of this bike. As a matter of fact, the KLR650 this is the bike I ride the most conservative, where I won't, when I'm in the backcountry, I won't, if it looks like any difficult, because I ride about 99% of the time I ride solo. So if I got this thing loaded down with gear, it's fully armored, everything else adds weight. It's a heavy, heavy bike, and as many of you well know, when you're out in the backcountry, you generally don't drop your bike on a nice flat grassy piece of ground. No, it's going to be like that, awkward, or up a slope or something like that, and just getting this bike up. Like I carried, I don't have it on currently, but I carry a winch on this bike to winch it up. Yeah, the weight's a big con. However, at the same time, when you're going down the interstate, or if you're in high winds, this bike handles high winds pretty good. And no carburetor. It's now fuel injected, so the current generation, that's not really a con. Also, this bike, you could say the technology is very simple also. The new generation just got a digital display, no tachometer anymore, and that's really about it. There's not a whole lot's going to go wrong with that. Very simple. However, some people could see that as a con also. So I'll just talk about a general experience with both the bikes now. So it's going to be a little over here and over there, but I won't drone on for too long. My experience. Value, I would have to say the KLR probably stands above the DR650 just because it comes already, well, I'm talking about the new generation, Gen 3s. You've got a windshield on it already. It comes with a tail rack. It comes with LED lights now. The seat is extremely comfortable. The DR650 has none of that. So those are things, if you want, that I had to put on. I also had to put a bigger gas tank on the DR650. I didn't have to, I chose to. So right off the bat, you're gonna, well, I needed, definitely, number one was a new seat on the DR650. I did want a windshield on the DR650, so I had to put that on. I had to put in an LED headlight, the Cyclops H4. So there's a few things that you're gonna, well, you don't have to, it's just up to you really, that you can do with the DR650 that the KLR650 already comes with. And those things together, we're not talking about armor or anything like that, just like a headlight, a seat, a gas tank, things of this nature for the DR650 is gonna, well, probably run you, my setup anyway, is well over another $1,000 just on those things. So windshield 3, 5, that's 1,100. Yeah, so well over $1,000 added to the DR650 that already come on a KLR650. But let's go back to weight. DR650, 366 pounds stock, KLR650, 456, and everything you put on adds weight. So you need to keep that in mind as well. If you're intending to ride this out in the backcountry, solo, weight is a number one thing for me anyway. So as far as what you get for the money you spend, the KLR650 is an excellent choice. I mean, you're pretty much rolling, other than adding some armor and some pannier racks and stuff, and maybe some better handguards. You've got everything on there. Both bikes, I had to deal with foot pegs. I had to put lower foot pegs on the DR650, so you would definitely have to do that with both bikes. That's another expense. Armor on both bikes, at least some type of crash guard and a bash plate. But I've got a few bikes to choose from, and the KLR650 gets ridden the least for me. So everything the KLR650 can do, the DR650 can do. And it's, I would say, some things better. So the KLR650 is the last bike I ride out of what I currently own. So I can get down the interstate just as well on the DR650. I don't get slapped around by the wind too much on the DR650. It's still a fairly heavy bike. I've got it to the point where it's just as comfortable as the KLR650. That was an added expense. And with the new gas tank, I've got just as long a range. So you can basically turn the DR650 into just a slightly smaller version of the KLR650. In its stock form, the DR650 is a very slim machine, like compared to the KLR650. You don't have much protection from the wind as far as fairing or anything like that on the DR650. KLR, you do. I mean, it's noticeable. And I should say this right now, I'm not doing like showing any riding in this video. I've got playlists on this channel with both bikes in all types of terrain, moto camping, so definitely check those out. But overall, I ride the DR more than the KLR. And it would be a severe game changer if Suzuki ever probably got this to be fuel injected and maybe added the 6th gear. I don't know. It would put the dual sport market into some serious competition, I think anyway. Both the KLR650 and the DR650 have been excellent bikes for the style of riding I do and the style of moto camping I do. As far as the terrain's concerned, I don't get too extreme with the KLR650, but getting out on forest roads, deep into the desert on, fairly tame dirt roads, highways, the KLR has just been fantastic. It's big, it's comfortable. easy to do 200-300 mile days for $7,000 or so, $8,000. All you gotta do is put a pair of pannier racks on this thing and some panniers, put a key in it, start it, and you're on the road. That's it. That's what you get when you, I mean, you're ready to go pretty much. Not that the DR is not that way, but yeah, it's not, I think the most people that get with the KLR650, after they get it, it's gonna be the weight that gets them. So you just need to be aware of what the bike is intended for. And I think instead of calling the KLR650 a dual sport, I think they should just say it's an entry-level adventure bike. I mean, that seems to be the route they're going with this, because each generation's gotten a little heavier, maybe a little bigger. I've had a Gen 2 and now a Gen 3. And I think that's probably what they should just call the bike. It's an entry-level adventure bike, because I'm not taking this bike out on single track out in the desert. It's just too heavy. But if you want to rack up miles, it's a big, comfortable bike to do that on, out in, you know, highways, interstates, whatnot. I've already made a few videos about the DR650 and how much I love the simplicity of this bike. It's simple. There's not a whole lot that's going to go wrong with the bike. I should say this about both motorcycles as far as general maintenance is concerned, and I'm just talking about oil changes, air filters, things of this nature that, you know, anybody can do, really. They don't have to be a certified tech to do. Both bikes are easy with general maintenance. You don't have to go digging through the bike to get an air filter. They're easy to get to. Oil changes are simple. So chain maintenance, things of this nature. If I can do this stuff, anyone can. I'm not a certified tech. One thing I really liked about the DR650 is that you can turn the DR650 into pretty much exactly what you want. This thing, there's so many aftermarket parts available, so many different things you can do with this bike. It's incredible. So if you want to make it heavier, like with a larger gas tank and things like that, you can beef this bike out. If you want to slim it down and get it lighter, you can do that. You can lower the bike. I mean, it's pretty cool what you can do with the DR650. The sky's the limit, essentially. You can turn it into whatever you're looking for. Not so much with the KLR650. Like, you can't take the gas tank, as far as I know. I'm sure, you know, a handy person could, but you can't take these things off the KLR650. However, you can with the DR650. So if you don't like it initially, you can turn it into something you like, which is pretty cool. Not so much you can do that with the KLR650. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Another good thing about either of these bikes is that there's plenty of them on the used market. You can get a fully loaded KLR or DR for quite a bit cheaper on the used market, and they're just excellent bikes that you can, you know, have a relatively peace of mind with, just because there's not a whole lot that can go wrong with them. I don't take my bikes out to like just intentionally destroy them. I actually try and care for them as I ride. I mean, I'll push them a little bit, but you can find great condition bikes in either of these on the used market. So you don't have to buy new and still get an awesome bike. So overall, either the KLR or the DR are excellent bikes. You really can't go wrong. Maybe it just comes down to, with the DR, do you want to deal with the carburetor? And with the KLR is, do you want to deal with the weight? That's it. You got a little lighter bike here with the DR. You can make it beefier, or you can make it lighter. KLR, you kind of stuck with what you got, and whatever you put on it's going to make it heavier. So those are kind of the two main things that I can see. KLR is going to be weight, and the DR is probably the carburetor. So price-wise, you're kind of looking, maybe the DR is a little more expensive overall, just with building the whole bike out. Bang for the buck, KLR, those things. But in my experience with both bikes, for the style of riding I do, they've both been excellent. So with all that being said, I would love to hear your experiences with either the KLR650 or the DR650. Hit up those comments, don't be shy. And hopefully this video has maybe shed a little light or been somewhat helpful to you if you're considering either of these bikes. And you know, there you have it. So folks, thank you very much for watching. I've got lots more content on the way. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It is free. And we'll see you next time, folks. Stay safe out there. D-Rock out, Adios.